Hello students, it's Miss Mason here and co-host Brutus is joining us again. Today we are talking now about the steps in forming a sedimentary rock. So how do sedimentary rocks form? Do you know, Brutus, how sedimentary rocks form? Do you know? Well, we're going to go over the steps of how sedimentary rocks form. The first step, number one, is called weathering. And weathering, think of weather, think of wearing. We're breaking apart large rocks. So you're breaking apart large rocks into smaller rocks. And those smaller rocks are called sediments. And sediments can range in different sizes from clay to boulders. So those are sediments produced from weathering. So weathering can be due to wind, can be due to water, to ice, even to gravity. So it's wearing down large rock formations. That's weathering. So a lot of people get weathering and erosion confused. Erosion is actually moving the rocks. So weathering is just wearing them down. Think of weathering, wearing down the rocks. Erosion, they're actually moving. So erosion kind of sounds like motion, erosion, motion. The erosion motion. And we'll work it with the transform slide. Alright, so erosion is motion of the rocks. The rocks are moving. Weathering, they're wearing down the rocks to smaller sediments. So that the first step then, number one, is weathering. So for sedimentary rock to be made, to make sandstone, if you've been to, Bryce Canyon or Antelope Canyon, Grand Canyon, number two then is erosion. So erosion motion. So erosion motion, erode. This is when things move. So weathering is wearing down. All right, erosion is when those sediments now are moving from that original place to someplace else. So they're transported. Like the UPS or Amazon. So the Amazon delivery, erosion. That's the second step, erosion. The third step then is deposition. When the rocks finally land in a place where they're going to settle for a while, their land is deposits. So they're deposited, so it's called deposition. So they stay in one place for a while, they're settled. So that's the third step, deposition. What happens now after these rocks have been weathered, eroded, and deposited? All right, so they're all staying in one place. They have to be packed down. So they have to be packed. Call that compaction. All right, it's like a deck of cards. Like each card could be a sediment. And those sediments get packed into the deck, and then you press that card deck down because we're adding more and more sediment, so it creates more pressure. So that pressurized compaction is the fourth step. Step four of creating a sedimentary rock. And then the last step, once these sediments are all compacted, pressed down together, squeezed together, they're going to go through a process called cementation. So it's like cement. So minerals and groundwater can leak into the spaces between those sediments and act as glue. So it kind of glues those sediments together. And then you form a sedimentary rock. So sedimentary rocks are formed from those 5 steps. Number one is weathering. So wearing down, weathering. Number 2, erosion motion. Think of erosion, movement, motion. Step 3, deposition. So the sediments get settled and they stay in one place. Number 4, compaction, like a deck of cards. They get all these sediments to pile up on top of each other. It creates a lot of pressure. That pressure builds up, packs them down tight. So there's less and less space between them. And then the final step to form sedimentary rock is cementation. So there are still spaces in those between those sediments, but when minerals and groundwater leak between those spaces, it acts like glue. So it glues those sediments together in the process known as cementation. Those are the 5 steps in making sedimentary rock.